The stone city of Machu Picchu is one of the most fascinating archaeological sites on the planet.
Something is deeply wrong with the history we've been told. In the heart of Peru lies a structure so massive, so precise, that modern engineers still struggle to explain how it was built.
So as an architect, I really wish that I can have like a time machine and go back in time and see how they did it.
No iron tools, no wheels, yet the stones weigh over 50 tons and fit together like a machine pressed them. This isn't myth or legend, it's real, and it's standing in plain sight. Welcome to Ollantaytambo, Peru's greatest mystery, a site many now believe represents megalithic ruins no human could ever build. What you're about to see isn't just ancient, it's impossible, and the truth will leave you speechless. The fortress in the clouds. High in Peru's sacred valley, nestled between steep mountain ridges and ancient riverbeds, stands a site that refuses to be forgotten. Ollantaytambo, a name that rolls off the tongue like a chant, echoing the footsteps of empires long vanished. It was once a royal estate for the Inca Emperor Pachacuti, and later, one of the final strongholds in the resistance against Spanish conquest. But despite centuries of study, this mountain fortress remains one of the most mysterious and underappreciated wonders of the ancient world. Ollantaytambo is more than a scenic ruin. The town itself is alive. Locals still live in original Inca dwellings, walk along Inca-laid stone paths, and use aqueducts built over 500 years ago that still deliver water as if time hadn't moved. That alone is impressive. But what lies above the town, carved into the mountainside, is what has drawn scholars, travelers, and skeptics for generations. The fortress is built on multiple levels of stone terraces, each one perfectly aligned and engineered to resist erosion and earthquakes. Standing at the base, you immediately sense it wasn't designed for beauty alone. These were defensive structures, elevated, fortified, overlooking the valley below. But as you climb higher, passing intricate water systems and stairways carved into bedrock, the story begins to shift. The site starts to feel less like a military installation and more like something ceremonial, even sacred. In the uppermost reaches of Ollantaytambo, you'll find structures that raise more questions than answers. Massive stone blocks stacked with impossible precision. Walls that stand without mortar, unmoved by centuries of earthquakes that have toppled modern towns. These are not the kind of stones one simply drags into place. Some weigh over 50 tons. And yet, here they are, aligned so tightly that not even a sheet of paper can slide between them. This level of engineering mastery is not something we typically associate with the 15th century. The Inca had no written language, no metal tools suitable for shaping hard stone, and no concept of the wheel for transport. And yet they accomplished something that modern engineers still debate to this day. How did they do it? The conventional explanations are often vague. Ramps, manpower, wooden rollers. But none seem to fully explain what you see in front of you when you're standing beneath those massive monoliths. Many researchers believe Emperor Pachacuti didn't start with a blank canvas. There are signs that Ollantaytambo was built on top of an older foundation, possibly one left behind by a civilization we know little about. That possibility opens the door to a larger mystery. If the Inca inherited a site already laid out by others, what else have we misunderstood about this place? Who were the original builders? And how much of their knowledge was lost before it was ever recorded? Even the layout of Ollantaytambo feels intentional beyond what's typically found in ancient cities. The terraces are not just agricultural. They're angled to resist landslides. Water flows through channels that still function today, and their gradients are so precise they manage pressure and prevent overflow. It's this kind of design, both functional and symbolic, that suggests a deeper understanding of the environment, geometry, and time itself. It's no wonder, then, that Ollantaytambo served as a final refuge during the Spanish invasion. Manco Inca, one of the last leaders of the resistance, used the fortress to launch a successful counterattack against the conquistadors. From the high vantage points and narrow passages, his warriors hurled boulders and arrows down on the invaders. For a brief moment, the empire pushed back. But ultimately, like the rest of the Inca world, Ollantaytambo would fall. What remained, though, is this impossible construction, standing untouched by centuries of destruction. As we move deeper into this story, the real mystery will begin to unfold. Not just how Ollantaytambo was built, but whether it ever could have been built by humans with the tools and knowledge we assume they had. Because the deeper you look into this place, the more it begins to defy logic. And that's only the beginning. The impossible stones. It doesn't take long for visitors at Ollantaytambo to stop looking at the site as a ruin and start seeing it as a riddle. The deeper you go, the stranger it gets. At the heart of the puzzle are the stones themselves. Not small hand-sized bricks or simple slabs, but hulking giants, some as tall as a bus and weighing over 50 tons. And here's the catch. They weren't quarried from the mountain Ollantaytambo sits on. These megaliths were brought in from across the valley, dragged from a quarry located on the opposite mountainside, across a river, up an incline, through rugged, uneven terrain. Even with today's equipment, hydraulic lifts, cranes, custom trucks, it would take careful planning and weeks of effort to move a single stone that large. But the builders of Ollantaytambo had no such tools. No cranes, no diesel engines, no metal carts, and most importantly, no wheel. The Inca civilization never developed wheel-based transport. So how exactly did they transport these multi-ton monoliths? That question has no clear answer. The conventional explanation involves brute force. Hundreds, maybe thousands of workers using ropes, wooden rollers, and ramps. But the landscape poses serious problems for that theory. The route from the quarry involves crossing the Urubamba River and ascending steep mountain switchbacks. There's evidence that some stones were dropped and abandoned along the way, possibly after attempts to move them failed. But even if the Inca had the numbers and the willpower, there's still no blueprint for how they pulled it off. Moving the stones was one thing. Shaping and placing them was something else entirely. Stand in front of the wall of the 6 monoliths, one of Ollantaytambo's most iconic features, and the questions only multiply. These 6 enormous stones form part of a wall that seems both ceremonial and defensive, but their placement is so precise, it borders on mathematical obsession. Each stone has been shaped to interlock with its neighbor. Some have small niches carved into their surfaces, while others feature odd protrusions known as knobs or bosses. Some scholars think they served as handles or lifting points. Others believe they were symbolic, part of an encoded visual language. What's clear is that none of it feels random. The hardest detail to ignore is how smooth the joints are. These aren't just large blocks stacked like Lego. They're sculpted so perfectly that you can't slide a credit card between them. There's no mortar or filler holding them in place. Yet the wall has remained stable for centuries in an earthquake-prone region. Earthquakes that have reduced colonial Spanish buildings to rubble have left Ollantaytambo's stonework untouched. It's as if the builders not only knew how to shape stone, but understood seismic behavior and designed for it. This is where the site starts to slip away from typical archaeological models. Andesite, one of the stones used in construction, is extremely hard, harder than any of the known tools available to the Inca. Bronze chisels would have barely scratched it, yet the stones have been shaped with smooth faces and complex angles. The tight joints aren't the result of erosion or luck. They were carved intentionally, purposefully. But by what method? Some theorists point to the use of unknown techniques, maybe using tools now lost to history, or knowledge that didn't survive Spanish conquest. Others entertain more fringe ideas, suggesting the site was started by a pre-Inca culture with advanced engineering skills. One idea even proposes that the stones were softened chemically using native plants, allowing them to mold the stone like wet clay. No solid evidence backs this up, but the mystery remains. What were they working with, and why can't we replicate it? The transportation, shaping, and placement of these stones are collectively what earned them the label impossible. Not because they literally defy physics, but because they shouldn't have been possible under the known conditions of the time. And yet, there they are, towering, silent, unmoved. The further we look into the construction, the less the site resembles a ruin, and the more it begins to resemble a message. One carved into stone that refuses to crumble, daring us to figure out how it was written. Precision without tools. There's something unsettling about standing inches away from a wall built over 500 years ago and realizing you're staring at craftsmanship that still outpaces modern construction in some ways. The stonework at Ollantaytambo doesn't just impress, it challenges. The deeper you look, the more it becomes clear that precision wasn't an accident here. it was the standard, and the methods used to achieve it remain unknown. At first glance, the walls seem simple, stone blocks stacked in rows. But up close, that illusion disappears. Each stone has been carved to fit its neighbors with such exactitude that there's no need for mortar. Every groove, notch, and curve is intentional. Some stones have as many as 12 faces, all cut to match the surrounding blocks perfectly. This isn't a case of cutting a square and sliding it into place. These are irregular, puzzle-like pieces fitted together with zero tolerance for error. But how do you shape stone this precisely without iron tools? The Inca had access to bronze, which is too soft to cut through the volcanic rocks used in the site, like andesite and diorite. These stones are tough. Modern tools struggle with them. So how did ancient builders manage to smooth surfaces, carve perfectly flat edges, and sculpt curves that match adjoining blocks like molded plastic? Archaeologists have proposed a few possibilities. Hammerstones made of even harder rock like hematite may have been used to pound surfaces down over time. Others believe the Incas relied on an incredible amount of patience and labor, grinding away slowly over weeks or months. But this still doesn't explain the consistency or the intricacy of the joints. Some angles are so tight and precise, they would have required detailed planning and a level of engineering we haven't fully documented in the region. Then there are the strange shapes. Many of the walls include what seem like intentionally placed indentations and protrusions. Some say for seismic resistance. Others claim they're symbolic, maybe even part of a forgotten code. But again, these aren't simple additions. They're part of the rock itself, seamlessly integrated, not attached or assembled later. One of the most baffling examples of this precision is a structure known as the Temple of the Sun. Here, the stonework climbs to an entirely different level. The stones are polished, almost reflective in places. They're arranged in a way that channels light during solstices, suggesting not only architectural skill, but astronomical knowledge. Alignments that track solar events were carved into a site sitting at nearly 9,000 feet above sea level, without the benefit of written blueprints or surveying instruments. Even more intriguing is the apparent effort to make the entire structure earthquake-resistant. The polygonal style of construction, where no two stones are the same, actually serves a functional purpose. The irregular shapes help distribute seismic energy, allowing the wall to flex during tremors without collapsing. The ancient builders didn't just stack stone. They engineered with the land's natural instability in mind. This isn't intuitive. This is experience-based design. And it works. There are modern engineers who've gone on record saying they would have difficulty replicating certain features of Ollantaytambo without modern software and cutting tools. That kind of comparison doesn't mean the site is supernatural or alien, but it does mean we're missing something. Either the Inca, or the people who came before them, understood something about materials, geometry, and construction that we don't fully grasp anymore. What's most haunting about Ollantaytambo isn't that it exists. It's that it exists in defiance of what we think is possible. The absence of visible tool marks on some stones, the deliberate complexity of each joint, and the site's long-standing resistance to time and tremors all point toward a lost method. Something deliberate, something effective, and something no one has managed to bring back. As we move forward, we'll confront the question that refuses to go away. If this level of precision can't be explained by the tools we know they had, then what built it? Peru's greatest mystery. Standing before the wall of the 6 monoliths, it starts to hit you. This place doesn't make sense. The site doesn't look damaged by time. It looks abandoned mid-project, as if something stopped the builders before they were finished. And yet, even in its incomplete state, the scale, precision, and mystery of Ollantaytambo outshine most finished monuments anywhere in the world. This is where the questions pile up, because when you add everything together, the massive stones, the precision joins, the transport routes across valleys, the absence of wheel-based technology or iron tools, you're left with something few dare to say out loud. This shouldn't exist. And that's exactly what has led many researchers, engineers, and historians to give Ollantaytambo a different kind of label. Not just a ruin, not just an archaeological wonder, but something far more confounding. Peru's greatest mystery, megalithic ruins no human could ever build. Now, to be clear, no one's saying humans didn't build it. But what it reflects is something more grounded, yet equally mind-bending. That no human, using the tools and technology known to have existed at the time, could have possibly built this place the way it appears today. And that is the heart of the mystery. It's not about fantasy. It's about math, engineering, physics. These stones, weighing up to 70 tons, were moved without cranes, shaped without steel, aligned with astronomical precision, all on a mountaintop with no flat terrain, no quarry nearby, and no known method for achieving such results. Add to that the seismic resistance of the structures, walls built to flex, not fall during earthquakes, and you're staring at a level of understanding that suggests either lost knowledge or something much older than what's been recorded. Geologists have weighed in. Engineers have studied the angles and load-bearing features of the stonework. Many admit they couldn't reproduce these feats today without digital modeling and heavy equipment, which means either the builders knew something we've forgotten, or we're wrong about when and how this was really made. Some archaeologists believe the Inca inherited the site and simply added to it. That makes sense in part. The rougher upper terraces look more like traditional Inca work, still impressive, but not as inexplicable as the core monoliths below. And if that's true, it opens up a chilling possibility, that the original builders weren't the Inca at all, that Ollantaytambo may be a hybrid site, partly Inca, partly something far more ancient. This idea isn't new, but it's gaining traction as researchers return to sites like Ollantaytambo with better tools. 3D scanning, satellite imaging, even AI-assisted analysis. They're finding inconsistencies in the construction styles, in the stone sources, and in the alignment systems that suggest multiple phases of occupation, some possibly predating the Inca by centuries or even millennia. And if that turns out to be true, it may mean the Inca were just as amazed by Ollantaytambo as we are. They may have preserved it, expanded on it, worshipped at it, but didn't build it from scratch. Which leads us back to the title of this story. Because whether human hands placed the stones or not, the fact remains. By every logical, historical, and engineering standard, Ollantaytambo represents megalithic ruins no human could ever build. At least, not with the tools and knowledge we've attributed to ancient Peru. This doesn't mean the solution is aliens or lost magic, but it does mean we might be missing a major piece of human history, something that suggests ancient civilizations were far more advanced than we've given them credit for. And perhaps, in the case of Ollantaytambo, we're not just looking at ruins, we're looking at a message carved into the earth, still waiting to be translated. And that translation might change everything we thought we knew about the Americas before conquest. Theories, tensions, and the academic rift. By now, it's no surprise that Ollantaytambo has become a battleground of ideas. On one side are traditional archaeologists, committed to preserving a timeline of history rooted in verified artifacts, carbon dating, and cultural continuity. On the other are engineers, independent researchers, and a growing community of skeptics who say, none of this adds up. And the divide is only getting wider. Mainstream experts maintain that the Inca were capable of extraordinary feats using simple tools, coordinated labor, and ingenious planning. They cite similar stonework across other Inca sites, Cusco, Sacsayhuamán, and Machu Picchu, as part of a recognizable style. They argue that the mystery isn't as much about how it was done, but rather how much effort went into doing it. Ramps, wooden sleds, ropes, levers. They insist these were enough, with enough manpower and time. But this explanation rarely satisfies the engineers who study the site. Not because they dismiss Inca intelligence, but because the logistics simply don't align. You don't just pull a 50-ton stone across a valley, float it over a river, haul it up a mountain incline, then shape it to within millimeters of perfection, all without evidence of any large-scale scaffolding, ramps, or broken stones littering the route. Some of the abandoned stones near the river do exist, but they only deepen the puzzle. Why are some stones halfway finished or left behind? And why do the ones that made it show such a dramatic leap in craftsmanship? The debate turns sharper when you consider the idea that Ollantaytambo might not be purely Inca at all. Some experts cautiously suggest the site may have been built in phases, with the Inca inheriting or reusing parts of an older, more technologically advanced foundation. There's a precedent for this across the world, civilizations building on top of earlier ruins. But the moment this is brought up in academic circles, it often hits resistance. That kind of speculation isn't easily accepted unless hard evidence emerges to shift the narrative. The problem is that Ollantaytambo doesn't give up its secrets easily. No inscriptions, no written records, just stone. Massive, silent, immovable. And in a field where written history holds more weight than physical anomalies, stone alone often isn't enough to rewrite timelines. Alternative theorists point to a number of oddities. Tool marks that don't align with known Inca instruments, polishing that appears too refined for bronze, alignment with solar events, and the possibility of acoustic properties built into the temple walls. Some even suggest ancient knowledge of stone softening, possibly using local plant extracts, to chemically alter stone surfaces for carving. While intriguing, this idea remains speculative, with no confirmed evidence of such a technique ever being used at scale. Others have suggested that if the Inca didn't build the most puzzling parts of Ollantaytambo, then someone much older must have. This leads to claims of a lost pre-Inca civilization with forgotten engineering knowledge. Not aliens, not myths, just people, smart, capable, and long gone. And that idea, while more grounded than extraterrestrial theories, still challenges academic comfort zones, because it means reevaluating what we know about the timeline of civilization in the Americas. The disagreement isn't just academic, it's emotional. For some, the idea that the Inca weren't the original architects of Ollantaytambo feels like erasure. For others, dismissing the gaps in evidence feels like denial. But one thing is clear, the site stands untouched by time, daring each side to prove their case without ever giving a final answer. In the end, Ollantaytambo sits quietly above the sacred valley, unmoved by the noise. Tourists walk through its terraces. Locals continue to live in its shadow. And researchers keep circling the same questions, pulled in by the same force that's captivated visitors for centuries. It's not just a ruin, it's a challenge. A permanent invitation to rethink what ancient humans were truly capable of. And no matter which side of the debate you're on, the stones aren't finished speaking yet. What happens now? In 2025, Ollantaytambo stepped out of the shadow of Machu Picchu. Officially elevated to Hierarchy 4 by the Peruvian government, the site now holds the same recognition as the country's most iconic landmarks. This isn't just about tourism, it's a signal, a statement that Ollantaytambo deserves more attention, more research, and more protection. For years, it was the kind of place that only a niche group of historians and alternative researchers obsessed over. Now, it's entering the mainstream. The New York Times listed it among its 52 places to visit in 2025, drawing global interest. But with that spotlight comes new pressure. How do you balance public access with preservation, curiosity with care? At the same time, technology is beginning to shift the game. Researchers are turning to 3D mapping, ground-penetrating radar, and artificial intelligence to re-examine Ollantaytambo in ways never possible before. Instead of digging blindly, they're now able to scan below the surface, revealing hidden layers of construction and underground anomalies that might hint at earlier foundations. Even microabrasion analysis is being used to study tool marks invisible to the naked eye. And while some hope these advances will finally solve the mystery, others suspect they'll only deepen it. Because Ollantaytambo doesn't feel like a puzzle waiting to be completed. It feels like a test. One that challenges our assumptions about history, progress, and forgotten knowledge. There's something powerful about a site that has outlived its builders, outlasted empires, and defied explanation. A site that continues to whisper across centuries. Look closer. Maybe it's not about proving who built it, but realizing how much we've forgotten. The kind of loss you can only measure in stone, silent, exact, immovable. Ollantaytambo remains perched above the sacred valley, watching. Not ruined, but undefeated. A living question carved into the bones of the Andes. And whether it was the Inca, Their predecessors? Or someone we've never heard of? What they left behind still makes one thing perfectly clear. This was no ordinary construction. This was the work of minds that understood something we still don't. And that's exactly why the mystery is far from over. What fascinates you the most about this place? Let us know in the comments.